Russian Ronda Rousey. You heard of this gal? The Russian Ronda Rousey comes over to Bellator. Now, she looks the part, and there's a mystique on Russia. I have a teammate, guys, right now, American top team, 18 years old, Russia, doesn't speak English yet. Good fighter. Blue belt in the gym, higher end of the blue belts, good fighter. He can't get a fight. He cannot get a fight because he has a Russian name. I'm not joking about this. When I talk about a mystique, when I talk about what Khabib and the boys have created, and I warned the world about this in 2012, I did a whole piece. I was on a show called UFC Tonight. And I said, guys, you better be really careful. And I was talking to the leaders of our industry. You would be very careful bringing these Russian guys over. Unless you're aware that the Russia invasion is going to happen. Now, I knew this from an amateur wrestling standpoint. There's guys you don't want to draw. You don't have to know anything about them. You don't have to have been to the world championships. You don't have to know what gym they're at. You don't know who they train with. Russia won't let you out of the country if they don't think they can bring a medal back. It's a very real thing, and I knew about this. It also tied in, don't forget 2012, relevant to my story, it also tied in with Klitschko's. The Klitschko's can't draw flies. And that isn't true throughout the world. These guys were massive stars. Somebody sees this who lives in Germany, for example, goes, Chael, what are you talking about? These were massive stars, but not in North America. The Klitschko's weren't drawing. So I was trying to make this point in 2012 of, hey guys, be careful unless you're aware that they are going to dominate, that they are going to be a massive problem. And a lot of people didn't listen because they didn't get the point. So what are you doing? You're just categorizing? You're just putting a group of people with a broad stroke like that? Yeah. Yes. Russian combat athletes. And I have 100 years of evidence that I could document. Khabib was in a sauna one time, okay? Khabib does not, number one, love wrestling. And Khabib does not, number one, love jiu-jitsu, as he's made clear for you. He does not, number one, love judo. He, number one, loves sambo. This is what Khabib represents. This is what he wants his style said. Right? And you only get to pick one. You come in, you got to represent one art. Khabib's is sambo, followed by, are you ready for this? Judo. Followed by wrestling. That is the order now. He's from Dagestan. And when I talk about the history that they have, is in wrestling. They've done just fine in the other arts, but it's within wrestling. Khabib was in a sauna one time. And I can't remember the number. But I'll get you close. Khabib had made a comment. He said, there's 1,800 people in my village. 21 are Olympic or world champions. I live in a state of Oregon. I have 4 million people right now. We have a world champion. His name's Les Gutches. He moved away. We have another guy named Fozzard. We have no Olympic gold medalists. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. Khabib in a village of 1,800 had 21 gold medalists from the World Championships or the Olympic Games. It's very interesting. So you have the Russian Ronda Rousey. So the Russian Ronda Rousey is going to come over, goes to Bellator, and she's making some waves just with this. Now, this has been tested another time in the form of Kayla Harrison. Kayla's been able to break away. She's doing her own thing. Kayla's doing her own thing, but very early on, the marketing and the worth of Kayla Harrison was tied to the idea that we can make her and associate her with the queen, Ronda Rousey. You can only go so far with that. But there's something there that works. Stay on Russian athletes. Possibly the most respected ever. This will surprise you. It is not Khabib, and it is not Fedor. Ever, throughout that country, possibly, is a super heavyweight known as Alexander Karelin. I share this with you because when Karelin left, they brought in a new heavyweight. They called him Baby Karelin. It took over the world. And this is wrestling. This is very small. I understand that, but I was part of that small. I was part of this community. Baby Karelin. I don't know that gentleman's name. This happened in 2001, guys. He debuted at the University Nationals. He went on to the senior championships. I don't know his name, but I know exactly who he is. I know exactly how we got that moniker, and he was known as Baby Corrallon. You can go so far with that. I use that because Kayla Harrison, very smart. She broke away. She broke away. I'm a judo Olympic champion multiple times over. I'm now the top fighter in the world. It's very good. She had to break away from that Ronda thing. I'll give you another example more recent that you guys would remember is Chimaev. Chimaev came in. Chimaev's nickname, when he was before the Smash Bros, before all this stuff, he was Khabib 2.0. Now, Chimaev was only 24 years old. And I would imagine Khabib is somebody that Chimaev greatly admired. He was trying to pay homage and respect. But even at 24, he was able to see, I'm not going to get out of this. If I do this, and my name catches on, and it was starting to fast. I'm talking about in 8 days. He had 2 fights, 2 weigh-ins, 2 different classes, and 2 stoppages. It was happening fast. He had to get away from the Khabib 2.0. Now, he wanted to get away from it so bad. When Chimaev dealt with this, he called Khabib out. He challenged him to a fight, which Chimaev later came back and apologized for. I'm trying to prove the point that that marketing and that idea works to an extent. Where does it stop? I don't have the answer to that. And I don't suggest for you that Russian Ronda Rousey should stop. It's working. It's working great. She has left Bellator. She went into the free agency. I believe she just signed to the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Russian Ronda, there's just something about it. And there's something that ties in, and there's something that makes you watch. And I will tell you, it even goes the other way. Baby Corrallon, who I mentioned a moment ago. Baby Corrallon got beat. He did not go on to be the senior world champion and or Olympic champion. But there was a massive tie-in, and there was a massive appreciation. It was as though they had beaten Corrallon himself. Evander Holyfield talked about this on The Tonight Show. 1991, and I remember it. And Evander Holyfield, who was living in Georgia, his son was playing baseball. I apologize, football. 6th grade. And he said the kids would tackle his son harder. They would try to stick it to the son harder. And then act as though they got over on Evander. It's a real thing. And you guys could use your own examples where you've either seen that or you've done that. There's something very real about this. Daniel Cormier addressed this in a very beautiful way. Somebody broke bad on Daniel Cormier. It was Phil Hawes. That's exactly who it was. Phil Hawes beat Deron Winn, who was a very good friend, a fellow coach with out there at the high school. But he's also a protege of Daniel Cormier. And Phil Hawes broke bad on Daniel, and the cameras were rolling. Right? And Daniel can only stay in that role to some extent. And it's a very blue moon when he breaks bad. But sometimes that kid from Louisiana comes out and he happens to be wearing a suit and representing ESPN. I mean, it's one of those things. You guys remember with Jake Paul? Remember when Daniel was working and he left his position, got into something with Jake Paul, but it happened with Phil Hawes. You know what Daniel said to him? He only said something simple. He didn't threaten him. He didn't curse. He didn't raise his voice. He said, "You did not beat me. You didn't just beat me." And Phil was guilty of exactly what I'm speaking about, where you beat a protege and therefore you stuck it to the guy. It's a real thing. I've done it too. I think that you guys will be able to relate to that. And you know what? I gave Phil the credit there. Because after Daniel said it, Phil processed it. He said, "You're right." And it ended and they walked away. I'm sharing for you. There's something that works. The Russian Ronda Rousey, there's something that works. You got to monitor it. You got to watch it. Chimaev had to deal with it to the extent, right? The student has to kill the sensei. This is old school martial arts. But when the student finally makes it, he has to get rid of the sensei. It's one of these things. And that's how Chimaev did it, where he flat challenged it. And then Chimaev was upset with himself. Man, I shouldn't have done that. That is the guy I respect. That is the guy I was trying to pay homage to. I don't need to fight that guy. But I also am no longer going to be 2.0. Vitor Belfort. If you guys are old enough fight fans, Vitor Belfort debuted in the UFC, his second fight in the UFC. His first one was a tournament, so he had 2 fights in one night. His second time into the UFC represented his third fight. Jeff Blatnick referred to Vitor as, here are his strengths. He has no known weaknesses, and they had never done that. The UFC used to break it. You see tail of the tape, you see records, you see things like this. They used to do it with strengths and weaknesses. They would put up a graphic for everybody to see, and they were spot on. Jeff Black was a very intelligent guy. He knew what he was talking about. He broke it down. He wrote the notes himself. He turned it to the digital department. They put it up on the screen. It's very good. Vitor Belfort. No known weaknesses, and it was frightening. It was a frightening thing to read. It was a frightening visual to see. It was far more effective than anything Jeff Blatnick and SCG, who ran the Ultimate Fighting Championship at that time, than they even expected. And here I am decades later, and I remember it. Monitor it, watch it. I'm just bringing it to your attention. It works. The Russian Ronda Rousey works. But at some point, that young lady is going to turn on her own name. She's going to turn on her own moniker. Rock did it. The Rock is The Rock. And The Rock was wrong for the time that he attempted to become Dwayne Johnson. He used to get upset with people. Don't call me The Rock. That's a character in WWE. I'm now in Hollywood. I'm not in WWE. I am Dwayne. He went for this whole thing with Dwayne, and we the people won, and he conceded. But he was still paying attention to the same ideals that if I'm going to grow up and I'm going to change, I got to leave some of that stuff behind. Keep your eye on it is my only point. It's good marketing. It works to an extent, but mark my words. With more and more success, she's going to pull away from that moniker.